Hello, my name is Carson. I'm an animation student, and for the past 10 months, I've been working on this short film that you're looking at right now completely by myself for my senior capstone final. If you would like to watch the full animation you haven't yet, it's posted on this channel so you could watch that first. This video is going to be split into 3 parts. The first one, I'm going to explain what exactly Cardinal Impulse is and what it means to me. The second one, I'll be going over my inspirations for the project and what you can kind of expect going forward without spoiling anything specific. And then the third one is going to be my plan to tackle this super ambitious project and what I want to do with my process compared to other things that people have done before. So basically, if you want to hear me yap about my project, that's kind of what you're getting. That's what it's going to be like for the next, 8-10 minutes, whatever it is. Okay, let's get started with section 1. So what is Cardinal Impulse? My capstone was just a little 8-minute glimpse into a bigger world I have written in my head. This is a passion project I've been working on for around a little more than like half a decade now. It's something I want to produce independently, similar to a lot of other animators. It started off as just me writing a backstory for my protogen original character, and then it eventually evolved into its own whole separate universe, which has its own lore and power system. It's a sci-fi about quadrillions of humans that have spread across the Milky Way galaxy with their own politics and wars, and the protogens sent there are part of a generation that are meant to interact with humans. If you don't know what a protogen is, by the way, I didn't make them. It's a species created by cool Koinu. They're cool with letting other people make their own OCs with the species and actually making their own media and everything, but I'm not taking credit for that at all. That is something somebody else made. But in terms of the rest of the story that I've made in my own universe, everything else is original, including Arkai too. Arkai is completely different from the canonical version of Arkai in actual protogen lore. I've made a completely separate one. It's still called Arkai, but it's got its whole own different power scaling system and things. The basic story is about a protogen soldier who's just trying to find his place in the universe. So that's why I keep mentioning stuff like power scaling, is because combat is super relevant to the plot and it's a big tool that is used for the storytelling I want to tell. I'm not going to reveal too much about my story though, because I'll let that do itself eventually over time. But I can talk about my inspirations because it'll give you guys kind of a taste of what I'm trying to do without actually spoiling anything. Although I've been inspired by a ton of stuff over the years, I've narrowed it down to roughly 3 that inspire me the most, and just ones I feel like I just want to talk about today. Star Wars. That's the first one. Everyone knows what Star Wars is. I'm mostly talking about the entire Star Wars universe is inspired me rather than specific movies. Although I really love the original trilogy, I don't think that inspires me as much as the lore and the universe surrounding it. If I had to pick one specific Star Wars piece of media that inspires me the most, it would probably be the Andor series. It's gotten so much praise from a lot of people, but it kind of flew under the radar when it originally released, which makes sense because it was one of the many Star Wars spin-offs that released like at that time. But it really depicts violence in a brutal and realistic way compared to other Star Wars media, and it writes the characters super realistic, and that's something I really want to strive for. Easier said than done, but what Andor really nails is the moral gray areas with every character and the choices that they have to make that are not necessarily true evil or true good. It's about that moral gray, and I think that's where the sweet spot is for good storytelling. Just for one example, the way that the Empire is depicted in Andor is way different than most Star Wars media. The people in it aren't these like one-dimensional like evil caricatures of like people. It's actual real people who have motivation and their own drive, and even though they're doing evil stuff, you see why they're doing it. It's not justifiable, but you understand why they're doing it because they show the system in front of you, and they show how it changes people. And that's really important to tell in a story that's about like good versus evil, is to show those gray areas, because if it's black and white, that's not realistic. That's not the story I want to tell, you know. And another reason why Andor feels so realistic is multiple reasons, is not just the writing, but also the acting and the set design. It's one of those projects where you can really see the passion behind it, and that's what gave it quality. They wanted to make a good product, and that really shows, and is something that I want to try to achieve in my own work. I got on a tangent, but basically the main thing that inspires my story that is in Star Wars is the huge empire that's totalitarian, galactic empire that's trying to conquer everything. I have something similar in mind. Okay, next up, a little different, talking about One Piece. Okay, here, just stay with me here. It's not even a sci-fi or anything, but the reason why One Piece and a lot of manga in general inspire me is because One Piece is basically the creative vision of just one guy over so many years, and that inspires me so much. The fact that he just wanted to write a story, and he started it with the intention of it only being like 5 years long, and then it expanded into this huge, ever-evolving project that is definitely not perfect, but it's really good because he spent so much time on it, and he just kept evolving it over time. That's something that really inspires me. It's something I really want to do. I'll explain my full roadmap in the exactly at the end of the video, but I want to do long form storytelling where it's multiple episodes. It shows character change that happens over a long period of time. That's something that is really difficult to do, but it is achievable. And I also feel like One Piece inspires me this way, where since it's long form, it sets up stuff really early that get paid off later. And since it's a long setup and payoff, it's really, really satisfying to see it pay off. And it also feels like a real living world with the amount of characters he has in it, and the fact that they grow and evolve separately from the protagonists, like off screen, and you come back and see their progress later, is something that I also want to do, where I have this big sprawling universe with all these different characters that you can see how they change over time, and it's really good how it is in One Piece. The last thing that I'll mention about One Piece is that the battle system and the power system really inspire me. I want to do something similar because combat is so integral to like the story that I want to write, just because I want to have cool fight scenes. Like, it's completely preference. It's something that I want to do, and I get that it doesn't appeal to everybody, but personally for me, having like a really, really in-depth and interesting power system really fleshes out the world, and it makes the fights scalable. You can keep going further into it as long as you write it well. In my opinion, you can just keep doing different battles that get interesting and not stale. So I'm really inspired by hockey in One Piece, and I really like the fact that pretty much anybody can train to become superhuman. Like, it just requires willpower and time, and I find that really inspiring. The last inspiration I'll talk about is probably my biggest inspiration, and that's Vinland Saga. I love Vinland Saga. The way that it presents morals and violence and just like the cruelty of war is something I really want to get across in my story. It's handled in a very mature way that not a lot of action stories handled it, and that's something that really inspires me, and it's something that I want to tell in my story. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you know the story, you know about the main character's arc throughout throughout the story. And I really want to do something similar with my character. And that's not usually done in action-packed stories. Usually you want more action. And so you want the character to become more violent and more dangerous. But I don't want that with my character. And I really, really like what happens with Thorfinn and Vinland Saga. So that would be probably my biggest inspiration because the plot is very similar to mine. And I also really like the balance between the realism and exaggeration in the fights because it's not super realistic, obviously, but there's not a lot of crazy stuff happening. It's still pretty grounded. And this is the exact style I want with my combat. The last thing I'll mention about Vinland Saga is the emotional aspect of it. It has a really good balance between the emotional moments and action, and the themes and conflicts that are presented to the main protagonist are exactly what I want to do with my story. So my plan for this is to be an animated series with 30-minute long episodes and around 7 episodes per season. It's super ambitious, but it's just something that I want to go for even if it takes me years and years and years to accomplish. My capstone was 8 minutes long and it took me a year to make, but that was because of all the pre-production I had to do since I was starting from scratch. Moving forward, I'll hopefully have less pre-production to do myself and I'll be doing a lot of just the animation. And for me, I can do that forever without getting bored. That's why I kind of rushed through pre-production for my capstone film. I wanted to compromise in that aspect so I could focus on animation for majority of what I was working on. The reason why it kind of looks like Roblox or like there's not like a lot of detail in the surfaces is because there are literally 0 textures in the entire project. 0. Everything is procedurally generated material in Blender. And that saved me so much time because I didn't have to UV unwrap anything. But that comes with its compromise. And that's the fact that it doesn't look that good, you know? Textures would look so much better and can add so much more depth. But I deliberately made that choice. I made that sacrifice in order to get it done on time. There's a few other examples of stuff like this. One of the biggest things is that there's a bunch of little clipping errors you'll be able to notice. Some pretty obvious ones too. But these were all compromises I had to make since I was making this film solo and modeling and rigging everything from scratch. So since I made those decisions, I was able to get it done on time, and even though it was ambitious, I was still able to complete it. I don't mind compromising visuals as much if it means I'm able to get it done on time and it doesn't hinder any of my original artistic intention. And I've honestly learned like so much ever since finishing my capstone, and so it'll only improve from now, and that's why I'm still happy with what I have because I just know it's the first step into an ever-evolving project. I do want to expand and eventually make like a small studio and hire people so I can independently produce this project, but even if that isn't possible, I still want to work on this in the background throughout my entire life. Currently, I'm writing and making an animatic for the first episode, which will be 30 minutes long, so I'm hoping by the end of this summer I'll have a good animatic made and I'll be able to start some of the early stages of pre-production at the beginning of fall. If you're interested in seeing updates about my progress, I'll link a Discord in the description. It's one I made where I'll post updates on the products and announcements and everything. I don't have like a Patreon or anything like that, but I'll eventually make something like that. If you guys want to support me or get rewards, I'll do something eventually. But since I don't have an audience right now at all, I'm just going to focus on my work first, and then hopefully I can grow an audience while I'm doing that. All right, that's all I gotta say. Thanks for listening all the way through, and I will see you guys later. I'll be uploading more stuff. So See you later.